Hello everyone, good to see you back again. Welcome to my channel's tutorial section. Today we'll be learning how to carve a permanent mandibular first premolar. Here you can see its different aspects. It has a quite symmetrical buccal outline with prominent buccal cusp, giving a profile of a small canine. So let's start. First we'll mark the aspects of the tooth: buccal, distal, lingual and mesial. Now we'll mark the crown length at 8.5 mm. And now the root length, which is 14 mm. Next we'll mark the central axis of the tooth, just a rough guideline, and connect these on the top. Now mark the mesio-distal width of the crown, that is 7 mm, but we'll take 0.5 mm extra. Mark it on the opposite too, and also on the occlusal aspect of the block. Now we'll cut straight along these markings to the crown length. First we'll mark the V-shaped notches at the cervical. Now we'll carve straight down. Mark the labio-lingual width of the crown to 8 mm, which is 0.5 mm extra than actual. Mark it on the opposite and also on the top of the block. Make the notches at the markings and cut straight down to make a cuboid. Make straight parallel walls within the marked dimensions and keep verifying. Keep verifying the required dimensions. We take this 0.5 mm extra dimension to allow us for finishing and merging of contours while still maintaining the required dimensions. Okay, we are done with the cuboid. Now we'll mark the mesio-distal width at the cervical, that is 5 mm, on the labial as well as on the lingual. Mark it dividing equally from the midline. Okay, like this. Now brief description of a buccal aspect, which is quite symmetrical bilaterally. Check, this is distal side. The mesial outline starts with a concavity from the cervical to a broad contact area with crest of contour slightly above the halfway to the cusp tip, and then it joins the cusp tip, making a short mesial slope, and hence the cusp tip is slightly to the mesial and not in the center. And then it continues with a long distal slope merging with a broader contact area than mesial, with a crest of contour at the same level as that of the mesial. And then it joins the cervical with the concavity. From the lingual aspect, it is just the mirror image of the buccal aspect while tapering towards the lingual. So first we'll make the notches. Let's carve. Starting with the mesial outline. We'll start with a concavity from the cervical. C. Extending it occlusally to merge with the broad contact area. Like that. Now we'll make a broad contact area with a crest of contour slightly above the middle. To do so, we need to make the mesial slope till the cusp tip, which will be slightly to the mesial. We'll keep it around here. From the center, the cusp tip will be slightly to the mesial. So let's carve the short mesial slope. Getting closer to the midline. Keep this slope slightly away from the center to have the tip to be placed mesially. Carving the slope here will develop a bulge portion in the middle, which will form the contact area. Observe the angle of the carver. See how I am lowering the slope to get the contact area. Now see, need to correct the slope. Now we'll round off the contact area. Also we'll make a slight concavity at the cervical. These angles will be rounded off to make the contact area. Similarly, we'll make the distal slope connecting the cusp tip to the contact area. This distal slope will be longer than the mesial. Gradually crossing the midline. See the distal slope slightly longer. Continue. Now to reach the contact area with the crest at the same level as that of the mesial, that is slightly above the mid level, we'll lower the slope at an angle. To develop a broader contact area, we need to develop a concavity in the cervical. See? Also keep leveling at the base. See now? Now we'll just round off all the line angles by gently running the back side of the carver on the line angles. See the broad contact area? We'll just lower it a bit and rounding off. See, like that, a long distal slope with a broader contact area and the crest of the contour at same level. Cusp tip to the mesial. Okay, now we'll do the buccal and the lingual outline from the proximal aspect. First mark the labio-lingual width at the cervical, that is 6.5 mm. Okay, so we have marked on the both proximal aspects. Now see from the mesial aspect, this side is buccal. The buccal outline starts from the cervical with a slight curve to the prominent convexity near the middle third around here, and then it steeply converges to meet the buccal cusp tip which lies in the mid-axis of the tooth. While the lingual outline starts with a lesser convexity with a crest near the middle third and with a short convergence above to reach the lingual cusp tip at the 2/3 crown height level. Cusp tip lies in the line with the root border of the lingual or simply the cervical marking. This is the variation from the maxillary where the cusp tip lies within the cervical dimensions. Okay, so let's carve. Make a small notch at the markings. Now develop a slope till the crest of curvature near the middle third. Run the carver to the full mesio-distal width. Now the second slope, which will be ending to the buccal cusp tip, which lies in the midline of the tooth. We'll mark the center. So we'll carve the slope connecting the cusp tip to the midline with the crest of contour near middle third cervically. Approach the midline. Keep surface smooth. See now. See, need to lower the slope a bit. See the change of the angle of the carver blade. Now see the slope. Making it smooth and free from the bumps. See? Just removing sharp angles from the slopes. Okay. Now from the distal aspect, we'll do the lingual outline. Here the cusp tip should be at the level of 2/3 of the crown length, which would be approximately about here at the junction of occlusal and middle third. So we'll carve slope from the cusp tip to this level, and then we'll make the convexity at the crest of contour. So we'll just mark it. Now let's carve. Keep checking if the buccal cusp tip is in the center. This is the midline. A little correction on the labial to approach the center. A little from the lingual too. Keep it smooth. Keep checking the dimensions at the cervical. Carve a notch till the marking at cervical on lingual. Like this. Now we'll make the crest of contour which lies near the middle third, around here. Let's carve. Extend the notch as a curved slope till the crest. See? Now the lingual cusp tip, as discussed earlier, will lie at 2/3 length from the cervical. So above the crest of contour, outline will converge slightly, though in detail the cusp will be carved later. So carve just a short converging slope. Like that. Okay. When we'll carve the occlusal surface, the cusp tip should lie at the 2/3 length. I'm not getting too close to the midline. because it will be carved sharp later. We'll check the final dimensions and then proceed for the occlusal. Check features from each aspect. See, the outline at the cervical is too low. Here, we'll correct this slope. See now? Just slightly give a bevel for the slope over the crest of contour. Check on both sides. Very slight. Okay, let's clean and proceed. Okay, so now we have carved gross outline from the facial and the proximal aspects. We'll check the dimensions now. The mesio-distal dimension is greater. We'll reduce it. To get the correct dimension, reduce equally from both sides. Reduce it by carving most contoured area, maintaining the shape and level of contour. And if not possible, then just flatten the contour to desired dimension and re-establish the same. See the level? Carve a little more. To maintain the contour, we also need to work on the cervical concavity. See? Similarly, work on the distal side, maintaining the shape and the level of the contour. Keep verifying the dimensions. A little more carving. Okay, now see. Again we need to work on the cervical concavity to enhance the contour of contact area. Verify the dimensions again. It's fine now. Let's clean and proceed. Okay, so now we have achieved the desired dimensions with the correct shape. Now we'll carve the occlusal aspect. Now to explain the occlusal outline, it's roughly a diamond shape with conical end towards the lingual. The buccal outline has slightly prominent buccal ridge with the mesial and distal slopes. These slopes end forming the line angles in line with the cusp tip on both sides, and immediately lingual to it lies the contact area. The distal contact area is wider than the mesial. Now from here, on both sides the lingual outline tapers to the midline. Okay, so now let's carve. Carving buccal aspect is similar to that of mandibular canine. Carving two slopes to raise a buccal ridge. Let's start. Carve the slope following the cervico-occlusal curvature. Carve the slope till the contact area, following them in the midline. See? Making this slope connecting the buccal ridge to the line angle close to the contact area. See now? Continue. Okay, now see, we are raising the buccal ridge here. Let's adjust the focus. Now similarly carve the distal slope. See the ridge? Continue. Your carving stroke should extend till cervical. Now see, a little correction here. A little correction on distal too. Closing into midline. Okay, now we have made the gross slope, we'll refine it later and add the developmental grooves too. First we'll carve the lingual outline. It will be grossly a triangular shape as discussed earlier. The lingual cusp tip will be in the midline. Okay, so let's carve. Carve at an angle from the contact area to the midline. See? Similarly on mesial. approaching midline. See how I'm rotating the tooth and not the carver. Slightly more on this side will improve the distal too. Now distal. Okay. Also we need to slightly lower this slope to keep it at 2/3 level. We'll keep it from the cervical towards the occlusal at 2/3 level. This is cervical 1/3, middle 1/3, so cusp tip will be at this junction with the occlusal third. Let's carve to lower the slope. See the level now, it's better. Just very slightly more. Check on the other side too. Like that. Now final shape will come after carving the cuspal ridges. Just clearing the base. Okay, so now checking the occlusal outline. The distal side is having less slope. You can see from here it has angles. So now we'll correct it to get the slope. Just remove the line angles developed with gentle strokes. The slope should be aiming to meet the midline, hence making the contact area. See, just a bit more slope. Okay, like this. Now see, here you can see the diverging line angle in the middle lobe. Let's converge them. A little rounding off at the cervical too. We need no sharp line angles. Okay, now see, it's fine. Now we'll make slight depressions on the either side of the buccal ridge or the middle lobe. Make it very shallow using the Zales carver. These are actually shallow V-shaped grooves extending from the occlusal region till the junction of middle and cervical third. You can use the other curved end of the carver to make depressions. See? Now merge it with the labial surface. Similarly on the other side. You can see these shallow depressions. Need to work on this mesial depression. Just merging them. Now we are done with the depressions. View it from the occlusal too. Just a little on the either side of the tip. So we are done with the occlusal outline. Now the occlusal surface. It has a large prominent buccal cusp and a small lingual cusp. It has a mesial and distal fossa with respective pits. It also has a key feature of Mesio-lingual developmental groove. As said, the buccal cusp has a triangular ridge. We'll develop that first. So following the cusp tip, we'll make the edge of the ridge over here. Just carve slopes on the either side of the midline. Carve close to the mesial and distal cusp ridge. Carve to the length of occlusal surface to raise the edge here. Also keep closing in to the buccal cusp ridges. Similarly on the other side. Okay, now you can see the edge of the ridge in the middle. Just a little more. Now you see the ridge here. Now we'll make a fissure which will separate the buccal and the lingual cusps. We'll use a sharp pointed or a narrow carver. We'll scribble the fissure, but first mark the distal and mesial pits. And now connecting it, make a semicircle. Just like this. Now we make a triangular ridge which connects the tip to this fissure, just as we did in the maxillary premolars. So we'll start making the slope on the either side of the edge, starting at a distance from the cusp tip. Keep it at a distance from the outline too. Let's zoom in for a better view. You can see better now. Now continue. Lightly carve the supplemental groove to make a Y-shaped pattern. Continue with the triangular ridge, carving slope from the edge in the middle to outer. See? Now little carving in the supplemental groove. We'll refine it later. First we'll achieve the gross carving. Now similarly on the mesial too. Marking the grooves. Carve a slope and also the supplemental groove. Carving the slope between the groove and the edge of the buccal triangular ridge. Okay. Also approach the cusp ridge in the middle. Keep the fossa closer to the buccal cusp ridge. Now the triangular ridge. Carve the ridge in slope. Keep the carver at an angle so that it curves. Okay, now grossly carved. We'll use a blunt curved Zales carver. The scarf depression following the fissures, also closing to the buccal cusp ridge. Doing this, it will develop smooth surfaces emerging from the fissures. Slightly deepen the fissures and grooves with a fine pointed instrument. Okay, like this. Also, we need to lower the marginal ridges so that the buccal triangular ridge is visible. Distal marginal ridge lies horizontal and very less buccal cusp ridge is visible as compared to that on the mesial side. Slightly deepening the groove so that the cusp ridge is appreciable from proximal aspect. Okay, like this. Further lower the marginal ridge. Refining the groove and developing the inner slope of marginal ridge and continuing with the lingual cusp too. Slightly defining the supplemental grooves. Carving with the blunt tip to smoothen around the fissures. This also widens the fossa slightly. Also carve along the slopes. Like this. Similarly on the mesial side too. Proceed as we did on the distal, refining and defining the grooves. See the triangular ridge developed? Now we'll carve the distinct feature of the mandibular first premolar, that is the mesio-lingual developmental groove right here. Let's try to align along the triangular ridge. Mark it vertically here. This will divide the mesial marginal ridge from the lingual cusp, like that. We'll lower the marginal ridge first. It will be lower than the distal side, so the triangular ridge is clearly visible from here and the lingual cusp too. The marginal ridge will be short in length as it will be carved towards buccal. So we'll lower the marginal ridge, keeping it lower and carving towards the buccal. Keep viewing from the occlusal as well as from the proximal. Connect the groove with the fissures made occlusally, also lowering the level. You can see the lingual cusp is visible now. Also the marginal ridge is towards the buccal. We need to close into the cuspal ridge. Sorry for getting out of focus. Just do it as we did on the distal. Getting it closer to the midline. Refining and deepening the grooves. Now see it from the occlusal, the rounded mesial marginal ridge. Need a little more refining. Smoothen and widen the grooves just as we did on the distal with a blunt carver tip. Okay, now we'll carve this portion of the lingual cusp. Just round it off as the mesial marginal ridge. Like this. Defining the fissure again. Rounding off the cuspal end to get the V-shaped fissure between the two cusps. See? Just rounding off the line angles here. Okay, now see better? Refining the groove and the lingual cusp part. Smoothing the line angles. Now also we'll make the lingual cusp tip, which is not very well developed. Just carve slight slope on either side of the midline. Very shallow slopes. Keep a check on the depth of the fissures too. Do it on the distal too. Very shallow. Give a slight buccal slope to the lingual cusp. Cleaning wax specks from the fissures. Now see, a little refining and polishing is required. Okay, let's zoom out and see. Okay, let's get back. Zoom in. Continue with the refining. Clearing around the groove at the cervical. Deepening the fissures. See? Okay, we just need to smoothen the ridge slopes and surfaces. Also around the fissures. Keep picking up the flakes and also refining the fissures. See? Slightly round off this lingual cusp tip. Also, we'll modify the triangular ridge. We'll make a depression in the ridge. This is not actually smooth, it has a shallow depression, and then we'll build its edge. See? A little more. Building the edge now by carving on both sides of the created flattened area. See? Smoothen the slopes. Use a pointed instrument to pick up the wax flakes. Okay, see now? Needs finishing and polishing. Okay, so let's start final touch-up and finishing. Need to refine some areas. Need to get this ridge close to the center. Just like that. Also check at the cervical. We need to taper the crown to the lingual. Just below the contact area, it narrows towards the lingual on both sides. Just tapering towards the lingual. So carving at an angle. We are carving towards lingual while approaching cervical. Basically, we are carving diagonally. You see, it will form a slight concavity below the contact area here. See? Now on mesial 2. See? A little more. Just smoothing around the fissures. Slightly polish to see irregularities. Be very gentle. Don't rub with too much pressure. Now see, need to even a few irregularities on the slopes of the ridges. Let's zoom in. Okay, continue now. Slightly refining the depth of the fissures too with a pointed instrument. A little more. Now polish it with cotton earbud very lightly. Okay, now zoom out and see. See now. It's fine. Now we can proceed with root carving. So first we'll mark the root length at 14 mm. Mark it again if it has faded. Now we'll cut straight down for the root. But first we'll mark the V-shaped notches at the markings, keeping the flat at the base. Now cut straight down to make parallel walls. Keep verifying the length. Keep it clear at the base to maintain the root length. Let's clear first and then we'll proceed. Okay, so now we have straight parallel walls. Now we cut straight down at these corners. Like this. Do on all corners. So now we'll describe the root. Well, its root is quite similar to that of canine, with a uniform taper from the cervical till apex. Cervical line has very less curvature. From lingual aspect, the root has similar taper as on buccal, but the lingual portion is narrower than the buccal since the root tapers from the buccal to lingual, also allowing you to see the proximal surfaces of the root too from this aspect. This makes a narrow ridge here. From the proximal aspect also, it tapers down to the root apex, aligning the buccal cusp tip with the root end. Remember, the buccal outline is slightly curved while the lingual is straighter. The root surface will show shallow developmental depressions, and since this is the distal aspect, it is slightly more convex surface than the mesial, which is flatter with developmental depression. The mesial cervical line has light convexity towards the crown, whereas distal one doesn't have a curvature. So we'll give the uniform taper overall, but first let's mark the cervical line. On the distal side it will be flatter. On mesial it will be of 1 mm high. Just mark it roughly. Now just scribble the cervical line, not too deep. Like this. Even up the root surface below it. While here on distal, the cervical line will be flat, so we'll even up the root surface below it too. And on buccal, it will be with concavity towards the root. Making the root surface even up at the corners. So from the buccal aspect, from these cervical lines, we make the taper till the root tip. The root tip will be having slight distal tilt. Let's start. Start carving less in the coronal portion of the root and more towards the apex to get even taper. Make sure you start from the cervical line. Keep carving on both sides. And keep a check on the taper. Continue carving using the back side of the carver. Also keep clearing at the base so that you don't lose the root length. See the taper? Remember, we also need to develop the distal tilt. You can see here the bulge. We'll flatten the surface. See? Now continue with the taper. Now for the tilt of the tip, carve more from the mesial at apex. First level up the base. Now continue at the apex. See? Now even up the root taper. Do it from the distal too. Keep the base clear so as to maintain the root length. On distal, carve more slightly above the apex to achieve distal tilt. Okay, you see a bulge here? We'll even it. Right? Now continue developing the taper and the tilt, and also even up the surface. Fine for now. The final tilt of the apex will be done after carving the root from the proximal surface, else it will easily fracture. On proximal side, we know we need to make the buccal outline curved while the lingual straighter. So first we'll carve these corners straight down, just like as we did on the buccal. And yes, the root apex will be in line with the cusp tip. Now continue with the corners. Getting taper at the apex. Carving the lingual outline to get the straight taper to apex, started from the cervical line, just as we did from the buccal aspect. One thing more, as we discussed that the root is narrower on the lingual than buccal, that means the root will be slightly tapering from the buccal to lingual, so that we can see both proximal surfaces from the lingual aspect. Need to make the mesial flatter. You can see some portion of the mesial now. Now distal side too. You can see the ridge coming up on the lingual surface. Need to give more taper. Distal side need to be convex. Okay. Mesial surface stays flat, refining the root surface below the cervical. Flattening and evening of the surface. See a sharp line angle, round it off. Like this. Now we'll develop the taper. Carve at the apex to get in center. Also see the distal tail coming up. Now the curved buccal outline. Curve more in the apical third. Closing in towards the midline. Carve from the cervical with very less pressure and more as you approach the apex to get the curved outline. See, we are always using the flat side of the carver. Simultaneously, we are rounding off any sharp line angles. Remember to start from the cervical with very gentle strokes so that you don't carve too much at the cervical. Continue. Always maintain the length by keeping clear at the base. Now let's clean and proceed. Okay, so now we'll continue with our carving from the proximal aspect. Developing the taper at apex. Seems okay now. You see some sharp line angle here? Just round it off. Over here too. Check. Slightly more. A little below the cervical line too. Keep rounding off the line angles with gentle strokes. A little more. Okay, now we carve a little more for the distal tilt, especially on the distal side. Carve slightly above the apex. A little more. Clearing the base at apex. See? A little work on the mesial at apex. Slightly on the lingual portion of the mesial surface. Okay, so we are done now. Now we'll make the developmental depressions. On mesial aspect, it will be more evident than on the distal aspect. Use Zales carver just as we have done in the previous carvings. Mark a groove and then gradually deepen it. Like this. Don't go deeper. Merge it and round it off with the root surface. Lightly run the carver on the sides of the groove and it will merge evenly. You can use the backside of the carver to burnish. Running the carver with feather touch from groove to the surface to give a nicely rounded root contour. Like this. Now polish and remove any scratch lines with the cotton bud. This should be done with light pressure so that you don't lose any carving details or contour. Defining slightly more. Even it up. Now round it off and smoothen. Rounding off the outer line angles. Blend the groove with the root surface. Polish it with cotton bud. See now? Like this. Similarly, now do it on the distal side. Just even up the root surface first, keeping it slightly convex. Removing all the carver strokes. Rounding off. Okay, like this. On distal surface of root, developmental depression is very shallow. So start carving just as we did on the mesial. Now polish and check. This seems fine. A gentle polish near cervical too. Let's clear and see. fine, just a little defining at the apex base. Okay, so here is a completed mandibular first premolar. Now observe from all aspects: the buccal showing the symmetrical outline, the distal with cusp tip in line with root tip, the lingual showing most of the occlusal and the proximal surfaces of the root, the mesial with the mesio-lingual developmental groove, and the occlusal with prominent buccal cusp and small lingual cusp. Okay, now try to carve one. I hope this video was useful, so keep practicing and keep carving.